Yo, what's up? My name is RetroPat, and welcome back to another Dungeon Defenders video guide. That's right, this game is still kicking in the year 2024, but it's kind of a difficult game to either come back to or to get into for the first time because there's so much to learn. It's such an unbelievably in-depth game, and I'm still learning, and I learn right alongside you guys. So today, I'm going to do my best to show you guys the most important classes, the most powerful classes that will help you make some progress during your Dungeon Defenders journey. And before we jump into the list, a quick reminder that if you enjoyed today's video, you find it helpful, and you want to see more just like this, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button on YouTube. I know it's annoying to ask, but man, is it helpful. Let's go ahead and jump into class number 1. The first hero class that I would recommend is a monk setting aura. This was the first ever hero that really made me feel like I was transitioning into that middle or even end game. Setting an aura stack is what it's essentially called, which usually includes a ensnare aura, an electric aura, and a strength drain aura. The electric aura can be kind of left in or left out, but honestly the two most important ones are the ensnare and the strength drain aura. The ensnare aura is going to monstrously slow down all minions that come into range of it, and the strength drain aura is going to cause any minions to lose elemental resistances and also severely reduce their attack damage, so they're able to do less damage to your towers. And also, if you have the electric aura stack up, even if they have that electric immunity, the strength drain aura will actually remove that immunity, and that works with other traps as well. So let's say for some reason you're using like a huntress and you set up an inferno trap which does fire damage. Well, now with the strength drain aura, that fire trap can do damage to all those minions. If you've ever watched any of my Dungeon Defenders 0 to level 100 series, you probably know just how powerful strength drain and aura stacks are, and how I kind of constantly set them up almost first on every single map that I actually play. So I just want to show you guys a quick example of a very early wave aura stack here. These minions are going to be monstrously slowed, which you'll immediately realize. Look at this. With the stats that I have on this character, the slow that they actually have to push through is just ridiculous, and it gives you so much more reaction time. It gives you time to actually go ahead and defeat these minions, which will then go ahead and give you the chance to actually build other towers to help take care of them safer. It's just so powerful. You could sit there and smack them. It's going to allow you to get more DPS onto them. It's going to allow everything. It increases your DPS. It increases your safety. It is the best offense, the best defense. It truly does everything. I really can't recommend aura stacks enough, and I feel like they are a pivotal part of late game Dungeon Defenders. Now, in terms of actually building your monk on what you want to level up when you level him up, I think focusing on aura effect strength and aura radius are the two most important stats, probably in that order. Doing damage over radius and then also making sure to increase your radius, but that kind of can go either way. As you can see, I have a little bit more radius, honestly 600 more stats into radius. The effect speed is nice, but you don't have to really worry about that. That's the third stat I'd worry about. So number 1, effect strength, number 2, radius, number 3, effect speed. Aura lifespan is nice, but you shouldn't need nearly as much of it as you can tell as these other 3 stats. Especially early game, that can be a lot better as well, but as long as you're playing actively and healing your auras, you shouldn't really be letting them go down. But that's it for the aura monk. Let's move on to class number 2, which is going to be the Summoner. One of the newer classes, at least new to me in the Dungeon Defenders game. Probably came out back in like 2014 at this point, but also one of the most unique classes in all of Dungeon Defenders, using something called summoning units as opposed to defense units. You see, the big downside of these summoners is that he can't actually attack himself. He can only build towers and use minions to actually attack for him. However, he gets so many positives because of that one downside that it's well worth it. Firstly, he can have access to 2 pets, which is an extreme stat boost, as you can see with the stats here. The main minions you want to know about on the summoner are going to be the archer minion, the spider minion, and then the mage minion can also be a nice little pocket pick. The archer minion is just so unbelievably cheap and efficient, only costing 4 minion units and 40 mana, that it's so beautiful at representing a ranged attacker while also being a physical wall between the enemies and your weaker towers you might want to protect. The spider is kind of similar to the strength drain aura with the monk. He's actually webbing the enemies and reducing their damage drastically while also slowing them and preventing them from using any abilities. Web is just a really powerful status condition in Dungeon Defenders. It's something you want to avoid as the player and inflict on your enemies. The summoner has a monstrous amount of skill expression as well, with all the other things it can do, like phase shifting out of the map for safety. It also can't pick up or activate things while it's phased out, but you can also go ahead and build towers. If I were to have mana here, you could safely go ahead and protect your world while just sort of playing the 5D chess. The summoner really is the tower defense, like tower master character. Also, you can actually use your overlord and move around and affect things on the world as well. If I were to have some towers built here, I could go ahead and move them or select them or even build towers from a range. You can also even get into commands and start commanding your units, but that can be a little difficult and a bit tricky to get used to, I will say, but just practice around with it and see what you can learn. From my understanding, left clicking is used to select him, which is honestly pretty powerful, and then going over to your commands. The main one that I use is just using move defensive to go ahead and reposition my units. These are the main things that I want to factor in case something gets moved, smacked around, or even killed. I also will decently often use deselect all minions if I want a quick reset. The archer is one of the best classes for setting things up early in a wave. I will say one of the downsides, as you can see, is that his casting rate is extremely slow. You are not meant to be really using the summoner in the middle of the wave, except for something called flash heal, which can be super, super powerful. Let's go ahead and watch this archer and this ogre do a little showdown here. I'll try to build another archer in the meantime to do some extra DPS. I think the summoner is one of the best early wave, like wave 1 characters. As you can see, he killed this ogre so much faster than my aura stack did on my monk. You are able to kill things. I think the archers and the summoner are probably the best, if not one of the best wave 1 heroes. Now, you can also press I believe Q or O, 0, during the wave there to go ahead and pop up a flash heal. That's probably one of the only things you want to be pressing aside from phasing in and out for safety reasons, but you can actually pop a flash heal while phased out, and that is going to help you get around the map safely while also healing up your towers if they're taking damage or under any duress. It's a big flash heal that, you know, heals everything in the radius for a decent chunk, as well as also healing the summoner's HP, which is important. Now, in terms of stat prioritization, it really depends on what you want to do with your summoner. I really do use my summoner as sort of the wall creator in my playthroughs, but you can do a mixture of minion damage or minion health. These are definitely the two things you want to prioritize first and foremost, but which one you want to prioritize first and foremost can kind of be up to you based on your runs and based on what maps you're playing. Next up, range is going to be pretty impactful. How far away can your minions actually start shooting is really, really nice. An attack rate is kind of nice, but it is going to cap out at a certain rate, so you don't want to worry about it too much or dump too many points into it. It'll take care of itself the longer the game goes on, the longer you do your playthrough. Other than that, I don't really dump stats into too much else on my summoner. I really think prioritizing just HP and damage are the two best things you can do, and everything else is kind of just butter on top of the toast. All right, next up, I feel like I say this for every single one of them, but one of the most powerful endgame classes, the Series EV Booster. Now, the Series EV isn't as good of a class to run solo. You want it to be your backup class or your backup hero. You want to combine the Series EV with something, and let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to hop over to my Squire here for a quick sec and go ahead and build myself a harpoon turret. I'm going to hop back down, switch back over to my Series EV. First, seeing the DPS. So we see about 126k, 126,000 DPS seems to be, yep, pretty consistent. Right, now we're on the Series EV over at that same harpoon tower, and it's important to note that the harpoon is actually doing 33% less damage because the Squire is not on the map. Good little fun tip to show you there. Now, let's go ahead and show you the tower that I use, the tower buff beam. This is pretty much the only tower that I use on the Series EV. I will occasionally use other things, but it was around 96k DPS without the tower buff beam. And now with the tower buff beam, we should be seeing increases. 97k, 100k, it is slowly starting to rise. 102k. The tower buff beam is one of the more 104k. Just continuously going up until we get to our actual number. 106k, 108k, etc., etc. The tower buff beam is one of the more powerful towers in all of Dungeon Defenders. It really boosts the amount of DPS you're able to do. It boosts the HP. It boosts all of the stats of a tower that it's affecting by all of the stats that you have on your Series EV. Not 1-to-1 from my understanding. It is some sort of calculation or algorithm, but it is a very powerful boost that should be used on most towers on endgame maps. It's so powerful that usually when leveling up towers, focusing on the tower buff beams is one of the most powerful things you can do. It is much better to get a tower buff beam up to like 1-star level versus even putting 1 level up on your harpoon. It's going to increase the damage that drastically, that it's important to focus on the buff beams. Plus, you're able to buff beam multiple towers at once. Let me show you a quick example of that. Let's go ahead and build a longer buff beam. They can be up to 6 unit cost and get pretty long. Let's go grab my squire. You want to make sure to leave as much space as possible to help as many towers fit into the booster beam as possible. And you also want to make sure you save enough defense units at near the end of a map to actually be able to fit enough Series EV booster beams onto the map and around your towers. Now, in terms of stat distribution on the Series EV, as far as I understand, I always focus on beam damage, and then you want to go rate actually next. So beam damage number 1, rate number 2, and then number 3, you want to focus on health. I kind of prioritize health a lot more here. It's something I might need to fix in the future, is honestly putting more time into the beam damage rate. That might be more beneficial. We'll have to see. But yeah, beam damage rate, and then beam health is also super nice. Shock beam stun time. This is a stat that only matters for one type of tower, a type of tower that I don't normally use on the Series EV. So if you wanted to do some specific build like this, and obviously all of the heroes I'll be showing off today can have different builds if you want to do different builds for them. I'm just showing off these specific builds. So this is really just a tower buff beam Series EV. For reference, I personally don't put any stats into that stat. I really just focus on damage, HP, and rate. All right, next up, the 4th hero that I want to talk about on today's list that I cannot believe I didn't build sooner. This is one of my biggest mistakes when playing Dungeon Defenders. A lightning tower, or just DPS tower orientated adept slash mage. I always call it a mage. I think it's technically called an adept. This guy, lightning towers are so freaking powerful. I'm going to place 1 lightning tower in the middle of the map here. Go ahead and start this wave and just see how much damage it can do. It just shreds through minions that get into its range. And it can also kind of chain off of minions. You generally want to have a few lightning towers built. I don't have quite enough mana for it, but these things can just do ridiculous amounts of damage. If you build one all the way back there, they can chain through all the minions and actually end up reaching the doors. The one thing about them is they are kind of frail, so if a minion gets to them, like this ogre, he'll do a decent bit of damage to it. However, look at this. You're clearly out damaging him in comparison, so we'll happily take it. These lightning towers can really do a ton. They're probably my main DPS now. Now that I actually have them, and now that I've been working on them, they're probably some of my main DPS. You can also build the Deadly Strike Tower, is also extremely powerful. It's really more so just one bolt of damage as opposed to the lightning tower really chaining across the entire map. That's its real benefit, is the fact that it has the AoE and the range that it ends up having by chaining the lightning damage through all of the minions. It's pretty cool to see, is what I'll say. But the Deadly Strike Tower is also a very viable build. It's just much more pinpoint focused. We can go ahead and jump into another wave here just to show you guys what these Deadly Strike Towers can do and what they kind of look like. We'll zoom out a bit. There we go. They just absolutely snipe things. Another good example of like probably a tower build that I should focus on a little more. I think it just one-shot that Jhin, for example. That thing is a demon. Something I probably should build a bit more of. Yeah, just a few towers built on this map. Absolutely shredding through everything. Now let's go over stat prioritization while these things kind of get, rear-ended by some spiders here, but... All right, in terms of stat prioritization on the adept, just damage. Now, obviously, you do want the other stats that help with the damage, but man, do you want damage. I cannot prioritize enough. You want damage, okay? Defense-based damage is so important. So defense-based damage, number 1. Attack rate, number 2. Range, number 3. And then other than that, you can put a little into HP, but hopefully you're putting defensive things in front of it to actually help you kind of alleviate that. Like usually I would end up building, as you can see, light towers getting down. Usually I would end up building the archers from the summoners in front in front of these lightning towers, and that'll help protect them and really take things down, while letting these towers output so much damage. Like this mage, this adept build is really just your bread and butter, your core damage, your core DPS. You could probably put some into casting rate as well if you wanted to go ahead and be able to build more towers in the middle of the wave. As you can see, I do have 1500 casting rate here, but once again, really just damage, damage, damage. As long as your adept is outputting damage, he's doing his job. All right, next up, you can run a few different heroes for this next style of character. This is going to be a DPS character, but you can also use this character in a couple of different ways. So DPS character number 1 I'll show you guys is my Barbarian, which is really, really fun. I love this class. I love this character. Now, I have a genie on him because what you can do is essentially equip some sort of genie pet, and that is going to allow you to get mana whenever you deal DPS. And on a DPS character, you're getting tons and tons of mana. Obviously, on any sort of these DPS characters, you generally want to be prioritizing hero damage, maybe some hero HP, hero speed up to 100 obviously is nice, and then whatever abilities you can do that actually help you output more damage. You just want to be doing physical damage with your character. We're not building towers anymore. We are doing Giga Chad shit and running into the face of enemies and smacking them around. So the benefit of the Barbarian is getting all your tower builds up and then bring him out, smacking things around, and being able to upgrade things and pump into things way, way faster. We also have a couple different varieties, obviously, of this DPS character, though. I'm not the most familiar with this playstyle, I will say. I'm much more familiar with tower-based playstyles as opposed to DPS. As you can see, these characters have much less love and much less stats into them. Here is the Jester. I've recently built this. The Jester is a cool support character that can be really, really good at putting into casting rate and upgrading stuff while putting some DPS, while offering the ability to move towers, which is extremely unique and just, you know, only exclusive to the Jester. Next up, a class that I have been playing a bit more that I have been enjoying is going to be the DPS Monk, especially with the tower boost. I'm really a tower-based character and tower-based player when it comes to Dungeon Defenders. Activating your tower boost is going to make it so your DPS Monk can essentially sit around your other towers, smack things around, run around the map, like do damage, do what he's trying to do. But in the meantime, he's also buffing all of the towers in his vicinity, healing them, number 1, which I think is super underrated, healing them, and then also increasing their damage, increasing their HP, and just increasing all of their stats. So I do think a DPS Monk like this with stuff invested into the tower boost is probably in the future can become one of my more favorite classes and one of my more, you know, powerful classes, but I just don't have enough personal experience at the moment to truly, you know, qualify it. And I do want to say, and I wish I would have said this more at the beginning of the video, but I am learning. You know, I've put around 300, I guess 250 or so hours into the PC port of the Dungeon Defenders game, and there's just so much more than that to learn. I really feel like I'm still a beginner. And even though I feel like a beginner, I do feel like I have enough information to hopefully make some guides for players who are trying to get into this game, because man, this game is amazing. It's so good. It's so deep. You could play it for 10,000 hours, and there's just so few guides on the internet for it, I feel like, and it's very, very difficult to find good guide content on YouTube. There is someone I forget his name, but there's someone else making some really, really good guide content recently. Very, very talented players and playing for a very clearly long time, which is cool to see. But I don't think there's not enough content for Dungeon Defenders for it being as high quality of a game as it is, which is, in my opinion, just a shame. So I'm going to try my best to use whatever limited knowledge I can to help you guys to the best of my ability, but I am learning, and if you ever see corrections in the comments, I will heart react, I will pin. I really just want to do whatever I can to get as much information out there as possible. And then I have to do a quick honorable mention, okay? My honorable mention for maybe the 6th class you want to build, the hero you want to build, is just your favorite, man. I love the Squire. I remember playing Xbox 360, split-screen co-op with my little brother. I was the Squire, he was the Adept, playing the beginning maps, playing way back in 2011, 2010 when this game released, and I love the Squire. I have nostalgia for him. I've always loved his style. I love his towers. I love that he can kind of be a really good hybrid character, which we didn't really cover any hybrid characters throughout this video, honestly, but he can be a very powerful hybrid character, dumping stuff into hero damage while also setting up really nice towers. He can build defensive towers. He could, you know, wall type towers. He could build offensive towers like the harpoon turret. Like, he can really do everything, and I really like that. Now, he's not the most powerful hero, honestly, in the end game of Dungeon Defenders, but he's just an all-around cool guy, and I've always been a big fan of the Squire. So I think having your favorite character built is really important, and enjoying the game and logging in every day to see a character that you want to play, that you're interested in playing, not just because it's the most efficient, is so important. But anyways, that is going to be it for me. I believe that's everything I wanted to cover today. Once again, if you enjoyed the video by now, go ahead and click the like button. It does mean the world to me. Dislike if you didn't. Subscribe for Dungeon Defenders videos every other day at the moment or whenever I can upload them. And I just appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this lovely game as much as I do. And I hope you have a fantastic day and go defend some dungeons. Peace, Reno. Yo, thank you so much for watching until the very end of the video, and a huge shout out to everybody listed here who goes above and beyond, supports the Patreon, and allows me to focus more on Dungeon Defenders content. Thanks again. Have a great day.